The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, well, good morning or good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Lori Elliott, and I will be your host for today's session. Just before we get started, we've got a couple of housekeeping notes. This presentation is being recorded, and you will get a copy along with any additional resources emailed to you probably in a couple of days' time. The session today will run about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll open it up at that point to Q&A. So there are two features to the platform that I just want to remind you of. We've got the chat. This is for general conversation. This is where I'll put my email address. If you have any questions after today's presentation, that's where you'll find it. But if you have questions throughout the presentation, please go ahead and type them into the type them into the Q&A panel, and I will read them to Kevin when we are done. So with that, welcome to Issues Facing Civil Firms and Next Steps for Success. Our presenter today is our Infrastructure Solutions Team Manager, Kevin Stacy. So Kevin, I'm going to go ahead and hand the floor over to you.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Thanks everybody for taking time out of your busy day. We always appreciate it when you can join us for our presentations. Today we're going to look at issues facing civil firms and next steps for success. And when we talk about civil firms, we are talking about civil and surveying firms. And I say that because I am a surveyor. A little bit about myself. I did attend Ohio State University. I am a licensed surveyor here in the state of Ohio. Been that way since July of 1993. I spent 30 plus years in private practice, doing a whole myriad of projects. And then about 14 years ago, I joined the reseller world with a company called Advanced Solutions, and we merged with IMAGINiT Technologies to become the largest reseller in North America. A little bit about IMAGINiT Technologies. We are a platinum VAR for the Autodesk world. We have 40 plus years of experience as being a reseller, 35,000 satisfied customers. Thing we're most proud of is we have the largest team of technical experts in the industry. And so that covers all disciplines from civil and surveying to the architectural and the building world and construction to the manufacturing world too. So we have a dedicated support team that operates 8 to 8 Eastern time. And there's a dedicated team of 16 people. That team answers all support questions regarding all softwares and can escalate a problem at any given time to any of the 135 application engineers. We also have a customer advocacy team. That team looks out for your best interest. And so there are people assigned to your accounts that will help you with any issues that you might have. We do have dedicated data management for facilities and asset management from that facilities management perspective. We do have 32 plus training centers and 12 mobile labs and online labs. We do train with a virtual machine platform called ReadyTech. And so we have the ability to have the software dispersed and the exercise files that can be accessed through a browser. Our sister company, Ascent Center of Technology, is the Autodesk authorized publisher, and they write the training manuals for 99.9% of the Autodesk software and disciplines for that. So here at Ascent, here at IMAGINiT, we really are problem solvers. And so we want to help companies with their issues, whether it's implementing best practices, CAD standards, how can we impact their operations so they can better use processes and technology. Everyone on this call really is thinking about, how do I reduce cost? Probably one of the most driving factors that we have is, how do we improve quality? How do we improve quality of our designs? How do we improve quality of our plan sets for that? How can we leverage technology to boost our productivity and our profitability for that? enable agility. How do we deal with those changes as we come through? So design changes and the downstream changes to our construction plans. How can we react to those in an efficient manner? And then accelerate innovation. We want to make sure that our teams understand the innovation that software is giving us on a daily basis, and how do we utilize that to the best interests of designing our projects. So here at IMAGINiT, we have consulting and professional solutions in all of the disciplines that range in the engineering realm from that. So BIM and CAD management, building lifecycle management, CAM services, data management, Vault, and how do we manage data? How do we use Autodesk Docs? How do we use the BIM services, the ABC Pro collections from that? We also have a software development group that can create programs, and we really utilize those for repetitive tasks. How can we automate things that we do? And we are also a reseller, and so reality capture is another important part of our business from the civil and surveying aspect that we have. We are strong in training and support. As I said, we have 135 application engineers. Those application engineers do training, whether it's remote or on site. And so there are 70 courses that you can choose from that we have. And we also can customize those courses to specific needs. There's also IMAGINiT Productivity Now, which is our e-learning and support platform. And Productivity Now is a great tool that we offer, and it does a couple of things. And my favorite things with Productivity Now is that it is an e-learning process. It does contain those Ascent courses that we write and publish. And so if you are a self-learner, or if your organization would like to set learning paths for self-learning, Productivity Now can manage that. The couple of things that I really like about Productivity Now is that it is a totally searchable database, and that information in there is vetted by our application engineers, and it's built on the Eagle Point Pinnacle learning system. And so that's the platform that we have built our Productivity Now learning portal on. And so you have something in there that you can search. And so if you go in there and you type a specific topic, then it's more of an electronic mentor, and it's great for post-implementation. So if you train and then down the road you have a question, rather than ask Jim, how do I do this? You can search within Productivity Now and come up with the answer on how to do it. It does workflow, so it'll give you the exact picks and clicks. It contains videos and tech tips and white papers to help you along the way. And then from the support platform, it operates within the Civil 3D environment. You can reach out to our support team with a support question and email them directly. So you not only have the learning portion of it, the kind of mentoring post-implementation portion of Productivity Now, but you have the support. So the purpose of today's webcast is to review a survey that was completed, and we're really focusing on the responses from principals and CAD managers. We want to look at a number of issues that were clearly identified in the survey, and then at the end we're going to summarize and give some recommendations. So over 10 years of industry surveys, we've kind of collected that information, sifted through it, and come up with some key issues that we have. Again, we're going to focus on principals and CAD manager responses. We know that there are a multitude in our organizations of different levels, from project managers to project engineers to designers to drafters, but we really wanted to focus on where the principals are looking at it from the business perspective, where the CAD managers are looking at it from overseeing that design functionality for that. And then the survey results provide some clarity and affirmation of industry trends that are going on and the needs that that have to be fulfilled to maintain a highly motivated and trained staff. So what did we learn? We learned that the asset is people, and people are our greatest challenge. So we want to make sure that from a design team, the entire organization is number one, how do we keep them? So how do we keep them happy? Number two, how do we keep everybody trained and at a high level of efficiency? And then also, how do we challenge individuals? Because we want to make sure that our team is challenged in what they're doing and that there's a growth path for them, both as an educational portion of it as well as task oriented. So what we find on a daily basis talking to our clients, looking at this survey, is that organizations are struggling to retain employees. And it's especially clear that this is a function now in the post-pandemic world that we live in. And so how do we keep our people? How do we keep them from moving on to another organization? What can we do to make them happy and content and fulfilled within our organization? How do we hire replacements? In my 30 plus years of private practice, hiring a new staff was always a challenge. You know, are they going to fit personality wise into my design teams? Are they technically capable of where I'd like them to be? How much onboarding am I going to have to do with individuals as they step into my organization as a new employee for that? And then now we have to adjust to utilizing a smaller workforce, and our smaller workforce has to produce as much or more as a larger workforce in the past. And so those are a couple of items that we really need to address as we look long term within our organizations. Issue number one, what's the biggest challenge you face regarding your business today? And as I went through this presentation and reviewed the responses between principals and CAD managers, the disparity in the focus of each one really became clear. And I don't think it was as clear to me personally as to when I looked at these bar graphs as we go through here. So when you look at this one, you look at the 68%, the meeting demand and hiring from a principal perspective. And so the principals are saying, I spend way too much time of my day going from meeting to meeting and trying to keep things on track. And then their number one really concern is hiring. How do I get the highly trained staff that I would like? And how do I go about finding these individuals? As we all know in our business, finding a good, highly qualified young engineer, senior engineer, designer, they're far and few between in the marketplace. And how do I recruit those individuals? And then you can see it quickly stair steps down to the things like, you know, reducing time and cost and finding and winning new business. You know, you would think that finding and winning new business from a principal perspective would be a very high concern of those. Wasn't reflected in the survey. So going to and from meetings and hiring of new staff. From the CAD manager's perspective, 64%, not enough staff. And again, that reflects directly into the hiring the new staff from the principals. Those two coincide pretty well. But the interesting thing for me, and again, from daily conversations with our clients, getting employees to follow standards and processes and managing CAD standards so that we can maintain the brands of our plans so that the reviewers can see the same thing time and time again from the CAD standards as they're reviewing the designs. That is the number one concern of a CAD manager once you get past the staff. And I find that interesting. And then it's followed up very closely by the lack of training and an onboarding program. And from my experience in the 30 plus years that I was in private practice, clearly defined onboarding processes are kind of far and few between in civil and surveying firms. I think most of us historically have kind of feet to the fire when we join an organization and we start learning. There's not that clear onboarding processes, which is critical for integrating any new person into your design teams. You also see that from a CAD manager, there's not enough time. And we hear this always from CAD managers that say, I need to work on CAD standards. I need to work on these overhead type tasks. But because of a shortage of personnel, I'm being pushed into doing billable work on a daily basis. And so rather than being 80 or 90% non-billable, working on things that need to be done, that number starts shrinking, and then the billable work starts rising, and so they're pulled in two different directions. And that's really one of the constant things that we hear from a CAD management perspective from that. And then the last couple are good points. How do I find relevant data, and how do I find information? Am I utilizing GIS to the best of my abilities for that? The inability to meet deadlines, or too many solutions are being used. And from that, when I look at that, I see that rather than have best practices workflows implemented within an organization, there's one group that does it A, one group that does it B, and so we don't have an integrated workflow from that perspective. And so very interesting from the CAD management what their biggest challenges are today. What takes up the majority of your time? Putting out fires, how often do we hear that? How often do we use our CAD managers as our sounding boards? When we have a problem, it becomes the CAD manager's problem. And so 35% of the responses were putting out fires. And hand in hand with that is supporting and training of staff. And so, I think that putting out fires and training of staff kind of are really one focus for that. And then you can see that the next one is doing billable work, as we said. Shortage of design teams. CAD managers are experts in the software, and so now they're put into the responsibility of having to produce billable work rather than do their tasks accordingly. And then it really drops off fast after those. Reviewing current workflows, reviewing new technology. Wow, those are way down there, and that. And so, from those three, putting out fires, supporting, training staff, and doing billable work, that's a common theme that we hear among every CAD manager that we talk to. What services are you hoping to offer? So from the principal perspective, I found this one interesting too. No new services, looking to expand into different industry areas. And so I find that shows a content among practices. And what that means to me personally through my career was there are things that firms are really good at. And if you're really good at it, then that's an arena that you want to stay in. And to venture out into something that you might not be good at, that's going to be harder to win business when you can do, we'll say, site development, whether it's commercial and residential, and that maybe environmental for those things. I personally took offense as a surveyor that bringing survey in-house was 0%. So from an engineering perspective, a lot of our clients, they do subcontract surveying as a service offering rather than have it in-house for that. And so it shows that most principals are content with their business plan and where they are, and they would like to grow their business within the sectors that they're good at rather than expand into new sectors such as transportation, scanning, architectural, building engineering from that. So I find this one very, very interesting from that perspective, but it is something that I hear every day, that we're good at this. We want to get better at it and more efficient so that we can produce more work with less people and grow that segment of business rather than start a new segment of business. So are you currently looking to expand your business? 40% of the principals in the survey said no. 60% said yes. Now, again, expand your business. That doesn't mean entering new segments of the civil world, though that is part of expanding, but a lot of them are expanding within their own realm of the things that they're very, very good at. But I would have thought that that the people looking not to expand their business would be a much smaller percentage than 40%. So quick summary of some of the things we've talked about. Staffing is an issue, both keeping your staff and finding new staff to help your teams expand from that. Meeting customer demand. And so what are our clients looking for? What type of representation of our projects are those clients looking for? We're moving farther and farther away from paper construction documents. And so we need to make sure that we have the ability to meet those client demands. Productivity, so important. Are we using our software to its fullest ability? You know, how can we streamline best practice workflows into our daily operations for that? How can we stop pushing our CAD managers into production? We hire them for a reason. We hire them to be the eyes and the ears and maintain our CAD standards and our workflows within our organization. How can we keep from using them on a daily basis for production and billable work for that? And then organizations are struggling to keep up, and you know, you hear it all the time. You know, we're just barely have our heads above water, and we're trying to maintain that. And we don't want to take a step back as it is perceived, maybe to train, get better in the software so that we can produce more for that. And so on that aspect, many of them are not really looking for a growth within their organization. Issue number 2, we've already seen in a couple of the bar graphs that there is a disconnect between principals and CAD managers. And this really is reflected in the work from home arrangements. And that was really brought front and center by the pandemic for us in the civil and surveying world. The working from home was something new, was something foreign that for our organizations. And then how do we deal with that? From a perspective in general, we generally historically have dealt with things by servers and project folders and discipline in the project folders for that and how our projects are put together. A lot of times we'll have a singular person work start to finish on a project, so collaboration wasn't an issue. And then all of a sudden we were thrust into this work at home scenario. And so we had to deal with those as organizations. And how did we conquer those? How did we adjust to those and find ourselves in the new world? So how is your team currently working? Light blue is principal responses, dark blue is CAD manager. Full-time in the office or field, you can see that the principal, 46%, but the CAD managers are saying, well, it's really 27%. That's quite the disparity on how that is perceived for that. Is it a hybrid office? Our office just came back as a hybrid office. We're here Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, at home Tuesdays and Thursdays. So are you some sort of hybrid environment now? Principals are 43% say we are. CAD managers are saying no, 60% of the responses say we're a hybrid from that. And then all staff working remotely, you can see that that's at least agreed upon pretty close between the principals and the CAD managers for that. And so the total remote offices now, everybody's kind of come back to either full-time in the office or a hybrid scenario within the work environment for that. And there are very few offices that are now solely remote from that perspective. What challenges does your team face working this way? And so for companies with remote workforces, there's a disconnect between principals and CAD managers regarding those challenges. And it really shows up in these. So from a principal perspective, collaboration, communication, same for both of them. 41% versus 58% in the CAD manager perspective. They understand that that collaboration is important. But then the disconnect for me is onboarding and training. Principals now are saying, okay, if our onboarding process it's working well, 30% say that it is a challenge. CAD managers don't see it as a challenge because they've adapted to working in a hybrid situation or a remote situation from that. And then revision and management, to me, 11%, 15%. So plan revisions, whether you're full-time in the office, remote, or a hybrid scenario, is not a big issue between the two perspectives of principals versus CAD managers. So they're not seeing that as a huge challenge for that. So issue 2, with people working remotely now, will this continue? Principals are saying yes. CAD managers are saying 49%, or I don't know. And then 19% of principals say no challenges. I think that in general, that's the huge question in the workforce. It impacts us as civil engineers and surveyors and how we perform our duties for that. Just in general, society is kind of in a hybrid mode of how it's returning to work after the pandemic. But I do have clients that through the entire pandemic were, for the most part, socially distanced, but in the office and never really went to a remote scenario. I have clients that are still remote, and then the majority of my clients are in some sort of hybrid scenario, whether they have half the office come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the other half comes in Tuesday, Thursday, things of that nature. And so no two scenarios are the same, but the difficulties and challenges are there. One of the top reasons employees are seeking positions elsewhere is the ability to work remote. And every article that I've read from business magazines and that, people are saying, if I can't work remote, then I'm not going back to the office. And that's a stark reality for principals of firms. How do I manage this? How do I, again, keep my greatest asset of people happy? Can we do a hybrid scenario where they do have some time at home, or whether they work at home entirely? And so that is a great concern that we have to deal with moving forward. So issue 2, couple of things in summary, is we want to make sure that we give clear messages to our employees. We want to make sure that how our office functions, whether it's full-time, everybody in the office, hybrid, or some people working at home, that message needs to be clear and across the board for everybody. You don't want it perceived as favoritism for John versus Joe, and that it has to be, again, clear across the board for everyone so that they understand how the office will perform for that. Make sure that those expectations are clear. Too many times they're not. They're mixed signals, and that results in the loss of employees that go on elsewhere. Anxiety, worker frustration, and contributing to turnover. We want to make sure that we can remove that from our organization any way that we can. And communication is the best way to do that. And then collaboration related challenges. As end users, we understand collaboration. We understand how to share different aspects of our design, whether it's site grading to utility to the roadway and that from that perspective on a complete design, but sharing the different bases and information. We understand that collaboration. A lot of times that's not really clear with principals. As they kind of move further and further away from the daily activities, the collaboration has kind of got lost in the dust. And so we want to make sure that they understand what is happening in the projects that are going on within the organization and why collaboration is so important so that we can do more with less in the workforce. Issue 3, many companies need to implement or update standards. And we hear this all the time in talking to our clients. Well, you know, I built my template and I kind of wrote my standards in 2011 and now I'm on 2022. And so there is a disconnect. And through the evolution of the software, there are things that have happened over time. Drawing formats have changed. Civil objects have changed. We went from VBA to .NET routines. All of this is integrated as we move our software forward and has to be taken into account. And so we need to make sure that as we move with the software, our standards are not only updated, but the appropriate templates in that are implemented into our daily practice. How well does your design documentation represent your brand? And it's interesting because, again, responses are pretty close. And for me, what does a brand mean? When I deal with organizations that have been in business 30, 40, 50 years, longer than that, there is a look to their plans that is their brand. And they've worked hard to create that. And because I'm an old guy, I started out on a drafting board. And that may be the start of a brand for an organization. And we want to make sure that we carry that brand forward, just like a product on the store shelves, you know, Borden or something like that. There's a brand recognition, so there's a brand recognition to our plans, and we've worked hard at that. So our clients, who, if I'm a site developer and I turn over a set of plans to my clients, they understand those plans. They're used to looking at those plans and my brand, and they recognize it right off the bat. And so we want to make sure that our design documentation does represent that brand. And the days of the very detailed CAD manuals in our electronic days are kind of waning. And so that design documentation becomes searchable PDFs and things of that nature for us, for our end users to utilize. So most principals and managers believe that their documents do represent their brand. I think that that's a focus for all of them. But if they had an opportunity to make any changes, they would improve productivity and improve reputation for the design integrity. And I think that that's reflected in the best practices and workflows that follow your CAD standards, follow the software innovations, and allow you to do that. While not noted a major issue, it can contribute to productivity shortcomings if you don't understand how your CAD standards are put together, how that brand works, and how those best practices can truly impact your productivity. Issue number 4, the slow rate of adopting new technologies is leaving many companies behind and opening the door for risk. And so as designers, what we don't want to do from that risk perspective is allow errors to creep into our designs. And so technology can help us with that. Technology can give us the redundancy we have in our designs that will allow us to check and clearly understand what's going on for that. So we determined this issue through the answers and CAD managers gave us to 3 questions. What data formats do your clients typically request? What is the most common way clients ask for you to share data with them? And how many applications does your typical designer or drafter use? What data formats do your clients usually request? PDFs by far the number one format that our clients are asking for now. Everybody's in the Adobe world. Everybody can read a PDF. PDFs are easily emailable. We get less and less responses for actual DWG or Revit files from our end users of the products for that, and paper's dying. We very rarely create paper plans or Mylar plans or anything of that nature. Everything is done in an electronic format. You can see overwhelmingly 55% just said all of the above from that. So data formats do our clients typically request, PDF being the number one. What's the most common way our clients ask us to share data? Email. By far, email is the number one. Dropbox is number 2, but typically, if anything can be emailed, it is, and then Dropbox becomes the number 2 when the file is too large to email because of restrictions in size that emails are allowed to pass through the system, whether it's going to your client and there's a restriction at your end as to how large a file you can email out. And that's when you go to a Dropbox for that. FTP sites in general, through my years in private practice, we maintained FTP sites. Again, they've kind of dropped off as Dropbox became more and more prevalent for that. And so maintaining an FTP site has really become a small entity for us for that. Working within the Autodesk Construction Cloud, BIM 360, again, the response was very, very small. Procore was another one that popped up. So really email and Dropbox, number 1 and number 2 ways for us to share data. How many different solutions does your team use for collaboration? It was kind of broken up into 3 categories: 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 or more. Overwhelming 1 to 5. So we want to minimize the number of things we use for collaboration because in general, simplicity is the better option for that, because everybody has a clear understanding of how that technology works and how those best practice workflows are integrated into the designs that we do. And so 87% overwhelmingly 1 to 5. And I would think that if we could break that down further into 1 versus 2 to 5, we would find that 1 was the overwhelming response in general for those. Summary of issues. PDFs is still number 1. There's still a growth within the BIM and CAD models and exchanging those, the one source of truth from that model, whether it's a Revit model that's being shared architecturally, but from a civil and a surveying world, it's generally that design base or bases that are collaborated with. Again, the one source of truth. Email is still the primary way we share data. The number of emails that everybody gets on a daily basis back and forth between your clients and yourself is tremendous, to the point where we're not only sitting in front of our computers looking at our emails, we take it home with our phones and our iPads and everywhere else for that. And again, most are using 1 to 5 collaboration solutions to share data, and that may be from a server to a cloud uh, basis for storage, Autodesk docs, things of that nature. So the collaboration's still on the lower end of the scale for that to keep workflows straightforward. Increased need for purpose-built collaboration tools is really driving the adoption through a slow rate. We find that most collaboration is generally in the civil and survey world, it is generally through larger projects and through multiple subcontractors. And that really is driving the collaboration that we see in the civil world, as opposed to an organization choosing to utilize those same tools within their organization to collaborate between the design teams, maybe the drainage and the stormwater team versus the site development team collaborating on a single design for that. Organizations have adopted purpose-built cloud collaboration systems, and that was a product of really the pandemic and having us store things in the cloud for that. I still have a lot of organizations that do not want anything that they do up in the cloud from that. And then infrastructure still lags behind the building and construction industry in collaboration. From a civil and survey perspective, we are kind of notorious in lagging behind in those kind of things from that. Issue number 5, repeatable tasks negatively impact productivity. So as things that we have to do that again are just over and over and over the same task, that can kind of become monotonous in the sense that it really impacts our productivity for that. So 72% of principal responses noted that the need for automation and repeatable tasks is more important than ever. And we get that. How can I automate this? How can I utilize that? So we want to make sure that our staffing understands the enhanced productivity that's available in the software, and I'll just use a couple of things from Civil 3D perspective. In recent years, we've had 2 new tools added. My career spanning 40 years, spreadsheets have always been part of the way I've lived and the way I've designed, and so we do have the ability within Civil 3D now to actually look at things in a spreadsheet format with Project Explorer. And Project Explorer operates within the Civil 3D environment and will allow us to actually look at a pipe network as a spreadsheet or an alignment as a spreadsheet, and will allow us to make edits to those things within that spreadsheet format. So again, there's a familiarity of something that we've done historically, and now it's available within the software to improve your productivity. And then there's new offerings such as grading optimization, where grading optimization is taking routine tasks that we would do from the grading of a site and allow us to have a criteria-driven cloud solution where you can put your criteria in for a site and have it go up to the cloud and let the iterations happen over a period of time and come back with solutions to you. So again, automating those tasks that we do on a regular basis for that. Something as simple as CAD standards, dynamic styles that we use. So now that we don't have to worry about copying and editing text and things of that nature. Again, those repetitive tasks. Can we create routines for that will allow us to do things on a quickly and more efficiently from that. Staffing challenges increase the need for productivity gains wherever possible. If you're sitting there and you can get through a design faster, more efficient, there's that sense of accomplishment. You can move on to the next design. So we want to make sure that we can accommodate that. So our recommendations: strengthen the bond between employee and employer. Our team is our number one asset. That's the key for this. We want to make sure that the employee is content, is well trained, and has a vision so that they can be maintained as one of our great employees. Increase the ROI of existing tools. Are we using our software to its maximum capability? Are we utilizing the design functionality of our software so that we can make sure that we're doing things quicker and more efficient for that? We want to make sure that we're adopting new tools. That means training. And if we have that training, then we're more apt to adopt the new tools, which is going to in turn improve our productivity for that. Enhancing productivity. So again, there's less members of our team. We still have the same number of projects and we have to push through our corridors and that. And so we want to make sure that we have that ability technically from the software, but also physically trained with the staff and the CAD standards in place to do that. And then aids in succession planning by preparing staff for their future roles. You know, today I don't know how to do pipe networks. I want to make sure that I'm trained so that sometime in the future I can design pipe networks and assist in those more complicated designs. So we want to make sure we do that. Automate repetitive tasks. Can we create and program a tool with in-house resources to automate the processes? We have a lot of our clients that do that actually add panels to the ribbon where they've created routines to do that automation for that. Is there an out-of-the-box solution that we can purchase that will enhance what we're doing? Absolutely. We want to make sure that if there is, and it saves us time and money, then we want to integrate that. And we want to work with consultants to customize a solution for that. Improve communication and collaboration. It can be done with technology. And so let's reduce the confusion about where we store our data. Let's make sure that all of our team can access what they need from the project information, and so that they know where it is and how to get it. Teams can collaborate effectively from wherever they are. I think the pandemic has proven that. Whether we're remote, whether we're hybrid, we can collaborate on large designs. Leaders can end the rumor mill by sharing important messages with employees. Communication, is key to anything. And so if our team understands where we are, where we need to go, and more importantly, what we as principals are going to do to make that happen, then everybody clearly understands the vision for that. And then, managers can build loyalty with virtual team building activities. Our organization has done that during the holiday times with multiple virtual things that were team building exercises and we do that throughout the year. So it can be done. It takes a little bit of effort. Want to make sure that loyalty is there, because we want to make sure that we keep our team in place as our assets. What can IMAGINiT do to help? Well, number one is education, and that's software education, understanding the design functionality and how it can help you. We can help you implement services for that. We have a service called Assess and Advise, where we take a very high altitude look at your organization and take a dive into the template and see what's going on from a business perspective, and through a series of interviews understand the organization from the project manager down to the designer drafter, and pain points for everyone because they're different, and how can we address those. Data management and collaboration solutions. We can help you integrate those into your daily workflow. How are you going to manage your drawings? How are you going to manage your designs? How are you going to collaborate in a hybrid environment? And those. our software development group, kings at automation and those repetitive tasks and creating code that will take over and do those tasks. And then we just have over-the-shoulder mentoring. We've all grown through our careers with mentoring, something that we offer with our experts. We have PEs and master's degrees and PSs all on staff from a civil perspective, and we can provide that over-the-shoulder mentoring for your organization. So again, just kind of a slide to refresh you from when we started. What IMAGINiT is. We are the largest reseller in North America. We do have those 135 plus application engineers, and we do have that dedicated support staff. Questions?